We're back for another episode of Kundalini Without the Cult. I'm Tiaga Prem, and I'm here with Guru Singh. How you doing today, Guru Singh?
We're doing well. We're weathering the weather of, the fires in Los Angeles, but we're doing well. God bless the people. We took a whole load of in our SUV. It was literally a pickup truck full of clothing, baby stroller, blankets, you know, new food product to the areas that are collecting now for the people who've lost everything. Because when you're burned out, when your house is just leveled to the ground, there you have nothing except for the clothes on your back and your keys, whatever.
Hmm.
And I really don't even want to imagine. The cliche is I can't imagine, but if you can imagine, and empathically we can all imagine what that must feel like. And so yeah, we're here in Los Angeles, taking care of each other. That's the main task right now.
I was thinking about with the I can't imagine cliche, like shifting that cliche to I'm choosing to imagine, and so therefore I'm choosing to act.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Much
definitely have
much much cleaner.
yeah, I've definitely learned from the many years that we've known each other to feel free to cancel a statement and redo
Yeah,
it.
right. Feel free to be free, to be
Yeah,
lang
we'll
to be language free.
right. We'll rewind that one and do it again. It helps in so many areas, business, relationships, you name it.
Yeah, I don't use in the meantime because who wants the time in between to be mean, right?
Well said.
And I don't use bullet points. I used key points, and I don't execute a plan because that means you're going to kill it. I implement a plan, and there's just so many terminologies in violent communication and in nonviolent communication that are really important to keep track of. Because like a rule of thumb, how horrendous. Back in the mid centuries, a man was allowed legally to beat his wife and children with a stick or a whip that was no thicker than his thumb. You know,
Oh my
like
gosh.
that's where a rule of thumb comes from.
I never
And
knew that.
yeah, and so just stay away from those old ridiculous sayings, and don't continue the insanity of that violence, especially in today's world. Today's world is just, you know, stressed out over the fact that the Caucasian race is no longer going to be the dominant race, and it's no longer going to be, it's never been the most numerous race. It's always been a minority race. But it's not going to be the dominant race because everything is mixing up now. And so, yeah, gotta gotta get rid of those old conservative, like let's keep it like the old traditions and all that. I mean, no, let's breathe some fresh air. Let's let's
Yeah.
let's get into the new time.
Yeah, I love that fresh air instead of stale air.
Yeah.
I'm really inspired, as I've mentioned before, to by reggae music and philosophy, and that's something that with language that the Rastas have been doing to dismantle systems of oppression and slavery. Like one example is they don't use the word dedicated; they say livicated.
I love it. I do love that. I am I am going to appropriately appropriate that.
Yeah, livicated. And another one is they don't say understand to stand under. They say overstand because they don't stand under any system. There's like all these things that I've learned, and it's not so much about the words, but it's more about the awareness.
Yeah, yeah, because, well, check it out. It is about the words, and I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying, in addition to
Hmm.
it's not about the words, it is also about the words, because even if we don't intentionally cause something to sit with meaning, it
Hmm.
does have meaning.
Hmm.
And and if and we're going to get into this with the alignment of the planets today,
Hmm.
because if there's a collective sense of the meaning, even though you're not intending it and you're overriding it by changing the word matters, because if the collective has a meaning for the word and you're using it in an innocent way, you're also promoting the meaning.
Right. Yeah. So it
Because,
is about both. It's about the
yeah,
meaning and the word.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm with you on that. Especially when if you're not aware of the meaning, like you're saying, and you're using the word, then you may be unconsciously connecting yourself to some message that doesn't align.
Correct. And even though you're not consciously imposing or proposing the message, you are unconsciously stimulating the vibration of the message just by your mere usage.
Right. Yeah. So to be really clear on your message as well as the means of the message, which are the words. Interrupt this program to tell you a little bit about the 13 Moon Studio. So, the 13 Moon Studio is a community based space online where you can practice with Guru Singh and with 1,000 other members in our community. It's a great place to gain accountability in your practice, learn new techniques, and do live classes with Guru Singh. You can become a member today by going to the 13moons.studio and giving it a try. We'd love to see you there. Now back to the show. Well, I am looking forward to this conversation mostly because I am an open book. I'm coming with an empty cup and a beginner's mind to this conversation. So that's just in response to you saying we've been doing these practices for a long time, which is true. And I still, there are so many aspects of what we do where I feel like a newbie, and that's a blessing, and I'm grateful for
Yeah.
it. So, when it comes to the
Yeah.
planetary alignment, I am an open book. So, I'm looking forward to exploring this with you today.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to exploring this with us today too.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
see. Let's see. Huh? Let's
Let's
see.
just see. I love that. Okay, so you were telling me when we talked about we were reasoning on some concepts for this discussion, and you were saying that we're in the midst of a planetary alignment that is involves 6 planets, and that next month at the end of February, Mercury jumps into the line as the 7th planet. So I was wondering if you could explain in depth what that means.
So, right now, we have Venus, Mars, Saturn, Neptune, Jupiter, and Uranus. And so, what we're missing is that Mercury and Pluto. And by the way, what they call hard science, which to me is a ridiculous term, all science is science, is now sort of pushing Pluto off into the asteroid belt, right? And saying it's not really a planet. And this is absolutely absurd, because it is a very effective planet, but it is not involved in this alignment. Maybe it got upset. Maybe it said, to heck with you people. I'm going to do my own thing. Right? But it's very influential in our astrology. So the planetary alignment is where they're close to each other and aligned with each other. And it's very much like an alignment of an eclipse where the sun and the earth and the moon, or the sun and the moon and the earth, are all in alignment, even more than the light, which is the visual effects of the eclipse, is the gravitational and the electromagnetic effects of an eclipse. And so when you have this alignment of six, and then come next month, Mercury will join in the parade, if you will. We have an alignment not only of this beauty in the sky, but we have an alignment of electromagnetic fields and gravitational fields. These are very, very profound. We don't necessarily feel the gravitational fields in our feeling sense system, in our clairsentience, in our sentient body. But our subtle bodies feel them profoundly. And this is why astrology is such a incredible science, whether you think of it in Western astrology, sidereal, or in Vedic astrology. They both have, it's a little bit like looking at biology and botany, or chemistry and physics. They're
Hmm.
sciences of measurement, and they measure things slightly differently.
Okay.
What is happening here with this alignment is the same kind of opportunity that happens, as I said, in an eclipse. And that is that whatever is there individually has now just been multiplied collectively. And so they are enhancing each other's signals. What is our response to this most benevolently? To align our bodies so that the various aspects of our bodies, both our physical body and our emotional body and our subtle bodies and our mental bodies, to really polish them all up so that we can gain the most fuel, one metaphor, the most wind in our sails, another metaphor, so that we can actually sail this gravity that is taking place in our solar system during this time and enhance whatever our plan, our dream, our desire is in this moment. And that's just a brief introduction to what it is that we're experiencing.
Okay. So when you're saying they're aligned and how you align yourself, there's like, it's like creating a clear pathway or channel or something like that.
Yeah, let me show something graphically.
Hmm.
So here we go with the cutout.
Hmm.
And then magically, this thing sits on my little stand here. Uh, Not yet ready to cut back in. All right, now we, oh, 1 second. Now cut back in. Ta-da. So one thing to understand is that the universe is a replica, or our body, let's say, is a replica of the universe. And one of the things that we want to align at all times in our body, but even now more so than ever, is the system of glands and organs corresponding to the chakras, corresponding to the subtle energies that surround us in our auric field, on and on, in our subtle bodies and in our core physical body, so that we can be aligned with the universe itself. So the universe, like our physical, has a series of chakras coming from the universal sun, which is the root, all the way up to the violet rim, sometimes in some practices called the violet flame. And then in between here is the blue ether. And then here, between the navel point and the heart center, is, in our physical bodies, is our pranic centers. And in the universe itself is the pranic center of the universe, which means that pranic life, or life that breathes like we are breathing, can exist within this area of this universe. And this is just one of many universes, and I'll refer to that in a subsequent graphic. And so what we have here is we've got these always aligning chakras of the universe. When we align ourselves by enhancing the health of the glands and organs that correspond to each one of our chakras, and then aligning ourselves, our physical body, with our emotional body, with our mental body, with our subtle bodies, then all of a sudden we are in what's called resonance. And the value of resonance is that when we are equal to the universe, we begin to intuitively download our messages from the universal mind, which is where all new thought, innovative thought, comes from. The universal mind is literally the broadcast station of the cosmos, of this universe rather, that is broadcasting on all frequencies, and whatever frequency we tune our bodies to will determine what kind of thoughts we're thinking, what kind of ideas we're coming up with, what kind of success we're having in life. When we have a planetary alignment like what is happening right now, there is an enhancement lens. Like in sound work, it would be like an amplifier. In light work, it would be like a telescope lens. In feeling work, it would be like a vibrational sensation, an enhancement of the vibrational sensation, like a good massage does. And so what we end up with is we end up with this enhancer in this planetary alignment that allows us to, once we have aligned ourselves, to really capture and gather all of the information of the universe that is particular to us and our particular desires, plans, and goals at this time. So that's a brief on that.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I definitely understand that. It's like this, how the micro and the macro are in communication when there's
Exactly.
alignment.
Exactly.
Oh,
Like, for example, check this out, in the olden days, right? Or even in the new days, let's consider Sirius XM, right? XM
okay.
radio.
Hmm.
So Sirius XM radio is broadcasting on particular frequencies. And each of those frequencies has a number. And what we end up with is we end up with, in those frequencies, if we dial our radio to that number, then we pick up the station that is being broadcast at that frequency. If we change the number, we pick up a different station. The universe has a mind that is broadcasting at all times. We have a unit that is receiving at all times. When we tune our unit to the frequency of a particular broadcast, we receive it. What if you want to tune your frequency? What if you want to tune your instrument to the frequency of a broadcast for success in your particular dream, success in your particular plan or goal? Or you could tune your individual instrument to find out, what are all the problems in my dream or goal? Or you could tune it to, like a YouTube channel, what is the solution for all of my problems for achieving this dream or goal? That's exactly what we're talking about here. We have the receiver, the universe has the transmitter.
That's cool. I was thinking about, before we had this conversation, like the relationship between dharma, karma, and planetary alignment. And so far, from what you're saying, and maybe just to give my understanding of karma and dharma for the listener, and there's many ways to look at this, but just to give it some context, dharma being like the meaning or purpose of your beingness, and then karma being the conditions that you experience. And there's conditions happening all around you, from the weather to your environment to the way that you communicate because your parents talk to you that way, and goes on and on and on and on. So I understand what you're saying with the alignment, like you align your own personal connection with the earth and the chakras, and so that you can have a clear channel to receive from the macro version of that, the universal body, mind, consciousness, whatever language you want to give it. And by keeping that open, then you can receive those messages of, like you said, how to achieve the goal. Or, and I like how you added in, like, um, to know the challenges as well as a part of the process. And then my question is like, the relationship of karma to that, like the conditions that you're having. Like if we're talking about a benevolent universe, I'm going big with this one here. So bear
Yay.
with me. I'm going big. So if we're saying, for example, that like the universe, or this universal mind that holds all the information, if it's like a benevolent force, meaning like it wants to see all beings achieve this connection to dharma or purpose, or even like union, yoga or something, then what is the role of karma and like the conditions that we experience in our lives, like the challenges that we face? Are they there in support of that alignment, or are they random, or are they like, how does that fit together? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes
Yeah.
total sense. What I would probably look more to than saying that the universe is a benevolent universe
Mm-hmm.
is, I would say that the universe is a balanced universe. When we approach the universe to use the balance for benevolence, then the universe is benevolent. When we are chaotic, out of balance, then we don't get to really use the universe for anything. The universe is going to just toss us in the waves of time. And then we would probably say, the universe sucks, right? There is no God, you know.
Uh-huh.
It's just everyone for themselves, you know. It becomes a different interpretation. But the reality of physiology is quite simply stated in Newton's third law of motion, that for every action there's an equal and opposite action, or equal and opposite reaction, as they call it. So for every action, there's an equal and opposite action.
Mhm.
Equal and opposite reaction is kind of a redundancy.
Mhm.
And so what I would more propose, rather than saying that the universe is a benevolent, the universe is always in balance. And whatever pieces or parts of the universe that are out of balance, there's another piece or part of the universe that is the polarity to that. So the universe as a whole is in balance, but sections of the universe can be completely out of balance. It's like if you follow a storm all around the world and you're continuously following the storm, you would say that the weather on Earth is always stormy. But if you sit in one place and the storm passes over you, then you would say that the world is sometimes stormy and sometimes calm. And if, on the other hand, to the other extreme, you always just followed the calm weather, no matter where it was on Earth, then you might say the world is always calm, always beautiful, always wonderful. And so when we think of the universe as benevolent, we have to realize that there's an equal amount of malevolence in the universe as well as benevolence. And it's the balance between the two that actually stimulates growth. It also stimulates life, because life is a condition of growth.
Would you say, like, while you're saying that, I'm thinking about, like, when I use the word benevolence, I often think about like God or the great beyond that is behind all of this, like as a divine mother, in that, like, the divine mother is, there's like this side of her that wants to thrive and multiply and to see life in its fullness and vitality and all of that, and its desire is to bring everything into balance. And so if we are behaving in a way that is disturbing that as a part of her, we're not like cast away for our behavior, but we are going to have to pass through the rebalancing process, if you will. And that
Yeah,
rebalancing process, like underneath at the root of it, is this benevolent mother like being that's trying to bring everything into balance. And then there's like this karmic equation that needs to happen for that, because as you said, every action has an equal action. So I can try, like, we're getting pretty cosmic here, but I could try and like bring it into my own like personal life. Like, I can see in my life when I made choices that were out of alignment for what I knew, like that inner calling was guiding me towards, like being sober, or like being a good father, or whatever, these things that are like like for me, or even being like a teacher who's in integrity as a man, or like these things that are important to me. And when I've acted in a way that I was ignoring that, so misaligned, there the benevolent force for me is that there were opportunities for correction there, and they were really painful. Like, they required me to change things in my life and change the way that I was aligned and listen to my body and change patterns and habits. And that is difficult, the same way as like digging a trench is difficult. But if you need to dig a trench to lay water lines so you can get water to the house or something, then it's worth it. um, but I do feel like there is this underlying aspect of dharma that is bringing things into balance, and it is going to inevitably, like nature, is going to always bring things back into balance and always win. And mean that it's going to be soft, gentle, or pretty.
So think about Divine Mother in the life of a bird.
Mm-hmm.
If the Divine Mother in the life of a bird allows the bird to just sit in the nest and eat very joyously, munching away
Mm-hmm.
day in, day out,
Mm-hmm.
eventually the bird will become too fat for its wings and it will never learn to fly and therefore die in the nest. At some point in time, much to the chagrin of the baby bird, the mother bird is going to rustle herself in the nest and literally push the baby bird out of the nest.
Mm-hmm.
And the baby bird is going to feel quite insulted. And why is my wonderful mother being so mean and so cruel?
Mm-hmm.
But that's, like I said, that's only a part or a piece of the universe. The other part or piece of the universe is that the mother is now enabling the offspring to fend for itself so that it can then enjoy the fruits of the world on its own. And that bird out of the nest is very much like the cutting of the umbilicus in the human form. All of a sudden now the child has to, whether it's suckling on the breast or, eating with a spoon, has to start feeding itself. And it is said that our very first success in life is learning how to suckle and swallow, because we never had to do that in the womb. That's a muscle cord. It's a quite complex muscle coordination, swallowing. And we have to learn to coordinate and to lock the breast into the upper palate so that we can suckle and swallow and enable ourselves to live. And that first success in life is what then governs all the rest of our not challenges, but our channelings towards success in life, is that we will apply those same principles that we applied in the earliest moment of our life to every other success story in our life.
So, in a sense, the karmas that you experience are opportunities to align with Dharma. And as we become more aware, in a sense, then we are able to channel more effectively, like be in alignment so that we can get the message regardless of the situation, how it appears on the surface. Like, this, my mom just pushed me out of the nest and now I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
die. Why would she do this to
Mm-hmm.
me? Is an
Right.
opportunity to fly and
Mm-hmm.
be free,
Yeah.
depending on how you look at it.
And everything is depending on the angle of observation. This is another alignment that corresponds to the alignment of the chakras. And this is the alignment of the neurological centers in the body. Of course, in today's world, the only one that we truly educate is the head brain. which is two-dimensional, right, wrong, good, bad, yes, no. And that's because the two dimensions is the world of logic, right? Laws and rules are what govern the planet. And what we try to control each other with is laws and rules. But in fact, what we should be enabling are the connections and the nourishments, because with connections and nourishments, we would not be needing as many laws and rules, because we would within ourselves seek that balance between us as living beings, regardless of our nature. Human beings, four-legged animals, trees, we would not even be sacrificing the living being of air or the living being of water, which we are, polluting to a tremendous degree. And then the time and timing of the heart, knowing when to give and when to surrender so that we can receive. This is the neurological influence of that heart center. And then with these also aligned, all of a sudden this planetary alignment begins to have more of a meaningful impact in our lives, rather than just something that we are intellectually trying to understand. Oh, well, that means that if Saturn is aligned with Jupiter and Mars, and okay, so that means that if I'm feeling this way, that's just all explanation and definition. What we
Mm.
need more of is experience. Experience the sensations rather than talk about them. And so, what happens with this gut is that we begin to feel the experience. What happens with this is with the heart is we begin to balance the experience between giving and receiving. And then what happens with this head brain is we're able to comprehend the experience, duplicate the experience, replicate the experience, and even determine that we're going to share the experience. Because the connection between the head brain, when it's aligned with the heart brain, has the shoulders and arms in between, which are all about sharing and caring. The relationship between the gut brain and the heart brain has the diaphragm in between, and the diaphragm is all about inspiration and motivation. And so all of a sudden, we're inspired and motivated to be in a certain space. And in that space, we are able to care and share with those other life forms that are around us. And so when we now have this planetary alignment, it is enhancing the effects of us also aligning not only our chakras, but also our neurological centers. The neurology in the gut, which is the biome and the digestive system, the neurology in the heart, which is the respiratory and circulatory system, and then of course the neurology in the head, which is the receptivity of thought, at the frequency of whatever we have enabled the frequency of our physiology to become, so that we can receive that same frequency from the universal mind. And if we're too low to receive, if our frequency is too low to receive anything from the universal mind, then we will rely on receiving only used thoughts from the fellow human beings that are around us. And and that's important, because used thoughts are of great value. But if our only mental digestion is of used thoughts, of already been discovered thoughts, then we're not innovative, we're not experimental, and ultimately we won't even be experiential. We'll just be trapped in thought. So
Yeah, we just regurgitate.
right now with this planetary alignment, it's enhancing this other alignment ability as well.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you. It's about clearing these channels. I love the three brain centers, and we should cover more of that in future episodes. I think it's really helpful. And for today, with this planetary alignment, it's like we're doing all of this alignment work to clear the any blockages that we may experience from all of this baggage, if you will, from the past, like old ideas, and find that clear channel so we can receive our own unique link to the universal mind. And
Yeah.
then there's all these support systems to help us do that. And it's not about,
By the way, that's a very important point, what you just said, our own personal alignment with the universal mind. So keep that thought, but continue on.
okay, which I guess that would be a great definition for the word dharma. So
Yeah.
we're, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then I was just thinking about, like, I have communications with different people, whether they're into astrology or tea meditation or walking their dog at the beach early in the morning, or whatever it is, like following a certain system of yoga asanas, or just doing whatever inspires their body to move. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. The purpose of all of these things is not about right or wrong, which has happened with like religion and politics and belief systems and blah blah blah. The
Yeah,
purpose of it,
and right and wrong is all stuck in the head brain. It's not
right,
considering any of the other alignments.
right. So that is like a misalignment of the complete system to think that you have to get involved in that right, wrong, good, bad. But those systems that have come before provide you with a map to know where you could potentially look to have this unique experience of the
Hmm.
connection to the unit mind. But you don't have to cling on to them or point out how somebody's version of that is less than. You just apply what works, you leave what doesn't, to have this experience, or this alignment, if you will.
Yes. And this is where all of these traditionalists achieve only a portion of what is reality. For example, within the world of Kundalini, there was for several decades this concept that was irrevocable and said to be irreplaceable, and that is Kundalini Yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan. Yogi Bhajan had an incredible amount of wisdom, and he also had a significant amount of person and personality and personal preference that wasn't benevolent. And so he had a combination, like we all do. When the scandals came out about what was happening in the world of Yogi Bhajan and in the world of Kundalini Yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan, my response was, we don't want to sacrifice the foundation of the teachings because of the flaws of the teacher. Einstein had tremendous flaws in his character. His family suffered, other people suffered. Frank Lloyd Wright had tremendous flaws in his character. Contractors that worked for Frank Lloyd Wright suffered. In many instances, they never got paid. Many great masters of their particular trade have tremendous flaws. That shouldn't discount the mastery of their trade. Those need to be separated. And that's where the right, wrong, good, bad, if it's all head brain oriented and the rest is not in alignment, that's where you will end up. Because at right, wrong, good, bad, you either have to say that was all right what happened, or you have to say that was all wrong what happened. But if you're in the giving and receiving of the heart brain, then you say, okay, I am going to recognize some of the things are not worth receiving, and we need to set those aside. And if you're in the version of your aligned consciousness that is in connection and nourishment, then you will say, okay, part of the teachings were the carrying agent. And what do you do with the carrying agent for all that which is taken into your body as nourishment? It comes out as your shit. It comes out and you flush it down the toilet. That's what a carrying agent is all about. And so the nutrition of any of these sciences, whether it's the science of architecture and Frank Lloyd Wright, whether it's the science of astrophysics or quantum physics or just plain old Newtonian physics, as according to Albert Einstein, or if it's Kundalini Yoga, according to Yogi Bhajan, we have to know there's more to architecture than Frank Lloyd Wright showed us. There's more to physics than Albert Einstein showed us. And there's more to Kundalini than Yogi Bhajan showed us. And what in architecture Frank Lloyd Wright showed us, even though he was a scoundrel, has a tremendous amount of value. What Einstein showed us, even though he was a whack job personally, has a tremendous amount of value. And what Yogi Bhajan showed us, even though he was irresponsible in certain ways, and what's the right word I should use? He was immoral in certain ways. The teachings have a great deal of value. And so it's the baby in the bathwater. You know the story of the baby in the bathwater? Why did they have baby in bathwater? Because in Europe, you took bath once a year. Everybody in Europe, because the weather was so severe compared to some of the other parts of the world, they took a bath once a year, and it was hard to heat up enough water for a bath, right? You had to have a metal container, and you had to have a fire, and you had to have all these things way back in the Middle Ages. And so because it was a patriarchy, the men and the boy childs went first. Next came the woman, the wife, and the girl childs. And the last person to bathe in this really dirty, crappy, mucky, murky water was the baby. And you couldn't even see the baby in the water, and that's why they would say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And so all of these old sayings have a valid origin. The same thing holds true. Don't throw out Einsteinian physics because he was a scoundrel. Don't throw out Wrightian architecture because he was a scoundrel. And don't throw out Kundalini because Yogi Bhajan was a scoundrel. Because all of the sciences had a value, even though the scientists had mastery and misery combined in their personas. And so the alignment of all of this, enhanced by the alignment in the planets right now, can make you a better scientist in whatever field you are working in.
Yeah, the language of alignment really resonates. And I was contemplating as you were speaking about that, about Kundalini and Yogi Bhajan, using the language alignments and misalignments, and recognizing that the alignments that pass through a vessel, like a person who's working through this process of alignments and misalignments, those alignments are a conversation with God, if you will. And those alignments come through and they speak to that part in us that are looking to experience our own unique alignment. And then those misalignments are the unique challenges of that person. And what happens is we start to put people on a pedestal and saying like, oh, look at all of these alignments that they have. And then when there's misalignments that come up, then we discount the person. And then in the process, throw the baby out with the bathwater, as you say, and disregard the alignment, even though the alignment was this like divine communication that was happening and wasn't about the individual. And I was
Mhm.
reminded of Ramana Maharishi when he was passing. All of his students were really upset about, how he was going to die and don't leave us, et cetera, et cetera. And he says this, well, a lot of people quote this line, did I not teach you anything in all this time we've been together? Where could I go? Essentially, is the teaching. Because just the body passes away, and
Right.
what you're receiving from being in the presence of this person, it's not really about the person, it's about their commitment to be in alignment with this universal mind. And I think that's such an important way of looking at it with the language of alignment and misalignment, because we all have misalignments, and then we
Yep.
all have these moments of alignment, and
Yeah.
it's
Or
really
longer than a
inspiring.
moment.
Huh?
Or even longer than a moment.
Yeah.
We have these periods of time of alignment. And
Hmm.
that's why the whole concept of enlightenment is not a place that you arrive at and stay at. It's a navigation on the
Hmm.
constantly changing oceans of time.
Hmm.
Are
Yeah.
you
Total.
are you aligned or are you misaligned? And misalignment is also a great teacher.
Hmm. Yes, of course. I mean, how many lessons are we having today from folks who made mistakes, and we get an opportunity to learn from them? I mean, a lot of people paint Kobe Bryant with a negative brush because of some of the decisions that he made early on in his life. And we have to remember that he became a professional athlete as a child, essentially. And he made these decisions. And there's people I talk to even today, even though he's passed away, who continue to hold those against him. And one of the reasons that I find him to be such an inspiring person is because he made a conscious effort in his life to make amends for how he behaved towards women as a young
Hmm.
man, and then
Yeah.
became a father, and learned about meditation as inspired by Phil Jackson, and then in being a father made a conscious effort to do better and put a lot of, I mean, he had a lot of influence. A lot of people wanted his attention and his time, and he put a lot of effort into what can I do to support young women in sport. And to me, I think like that is born out of a misalignment, like an opportunity to align. And I'm all for second and third and however many chances a person needs to have, because it's in those misalignments that alignment comes through, and it becomes a medicine for other people who may be caught up in that a similar misalignment, and healing can come out of that experience. And I really love the language of looking at observing what people are going through and how they're showing up as alignments and misalignments, because it takes some of that hard edge of the two-dimensional brain out and brings you more into the other centers.
Yeah. And by the way, this whole idea of alignment and misalignment, there's an old adage in business that in order to succeed, it is more important to know what not to do and allow the moments to give you an indication of what to do. And if you can learn from your mistakes what not to do, if you can learn from your misalignments what not to do, then the more of the what not to do you have come to know, the more opportunities you have for the what to do to be demonstrated. moment to moment. And it allows you to more accurately and more articulately live in the present moment, because the not to do is what usually takes you into a chaotic sort of exit from the present moment. And if you've got all the what not to do's, or as many as you possibly can in mind, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
in your habit patterns, if you will, then you're going to be giving yourself the opportunity for dharma, because you have learned from karma. And by the way, karma means an accounting. It literally means that which surrounds you. It's like the lens that the universal intelligence is shining through to your character, being driven by the soul, so that you can then understand. So, the more of your karmic field you can gather into your awareness and compensate for that by being clearly attuned and aligned, then you're going to flow through each moment more readily. And that's has greater assistance right now with this planetary alignment. And I think that's a good spot for us to sort of wrap it up.
Mm.
What would you say in our close of this alignment component of
Yeah, I think
of Kundalini without the cult?
since we did go so planetary and cosmic in your closing comment there, I was reminded about the importance of pausing for a breath. And that's really what we're doing in our practices. We're training to pause and take a breath when things are difficult. I mean, we try and do that in our family. Like if things get heated, we'll be like, okay, let's pause and take a breath together. And we all breathe in and we breathe out. And then we continue the conversation. And that's an alignment based
Continue
practice.
continue the heat.
Yeah, and sometimes it needs to continue, and that's
Yeah, right
okay.
on.
But
Right
it
on.
doesn't get out of control. It less likely gets out of control. And with these planetary alignments, I think some people like myself, it's like sometimes it's so cosmic that you think like, well, yeah, but how does this like apply to my daily life? And I think what we're saying is let's take any opportunity, whether it's knowing what six planets are in alignment so that you can align through your own practice, and if that inspires you, or it could be the simple act of like pausing and taking a breath, or seeing if you can listen a little more deeply before speaking. I mean, these are all practices of alignment, and whatever helps you to do it, whether it's knowing where the planets are in the sky, or waking up early in the morning and not going on your phone, or whether it's like learning to pause and take a breath when you're having a heated conversation with someone you love. These are all valuable practices of of being aligned and doing the best that you can to be in that resonance in your relationships with the planets, with the planet we live on, with the body you live in, and with the people around you.
I heard a great story about the man who just surfed the largest wave ever surfed. And it was surfed off the coast of Northern California at Half Moon Bay.
Okay.
So this is a direct correlation to what you were just saying. He's learned to surf and he's surfed big waves and on and on and on and on. Mastered his trade, right? And so that's what you were saying, is that every day you should strive to align. And then he saw a weather report that he knew was going to be developing a swell literally across the ocean near Japan. And he calculated how long it was going to take for that swell to cross the entire Pacific Ocean. And he lived in Hawaii, lives in Hawaii. And he and his team, with their Sea-Doo and, all of their
Mm-hmm.
equipment that it takes to catch a monster wave, traveled to Northern California and waited for that swell that was coming across the Pacific Ocean to arrive. To equate the metaphor, we practice Kundalini or other forms of yoga practice, meditation practice, spiritual practice, whatever the form is that you are involved with. Anything from mountain climbing to beach walking to skip roping to tai chi to Kundalini to anything hatha, anything that you're practicing. That's you learning to deal with the wave. The planetary alignment is the storm off the coast of Japan and China that was going to send this wave across the Pacific Ocean. And now you're going, okay, for the next 5-6 weeks, I have the opportunity to surf the big wave.
Mm-hmm.
Another way of looking at it is that you've learned how to raise the sail on your sailboat. You know all about the rudder. You know about the keel. You know about all of the dynamics of sailing a boat. And now you're waiting for the wind. Well, the alignment is the wind. The alignment is the wave. So you can take now all of your skill set. You don't have to know anything about the planets or their influences or their, you know, psychometries or anything. All you got to know is practice your practice right now, and it will be enhanced. It will be magnified many, many, many fold. More so than if you were practicing your meditations 2 months from now or 2 months ago. If you practice your affirmations, your contemplations, your meditations, and your determinations, if you practice these things right now, they will have an enhanced outcome. By the way, do you know how they measure a wave? They take a picture of the surfer on the wave, then they measure the surfer's body, and then they calibrate how many of those surfers' bodies are on the surface of that wave. And this particular wave, the largest wave in the past had been somewhere between 85 and 95 feet tall. This
Mm-hmm.
one was over 100 feet tall. And the majority of the big waves have been off the coast of Portugal, where this trough comes in. This
Oh
one,
yeah, I've
this
seen
one
that.
was off the coast of Northern California, where there's an interesting undersea dynamic in the seabed that causes a swell to just suddenly surge up before breaking. So there you have it. You've got little surfing, little sailing, and also sailing the gravity of the cosmos, which, by the way, is going to be the way that we travel between the star systems ultimately, will be a combination of disappearing and reappearing through the fundamentals of love. And also, if we want to carry a trailer with us with a lot of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
then we'll need to surf gravity, sail gravity.
That's
But
right.
that's for another podcast.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I do want to recommend to anybody who's listening to this, accountability, support, and community are key components to sustaining an alignment based practice, which, I know, Guru Singh, you've been at it longer than me, but I've been doing this for 20 plus years, and it's made a world of difference. And I wouldn't have been able to keep going if it wasn't for community accountability and the support of being with others. And if that's something that you're seeking out, we have an online community at the 13moons.studio, and you can come on and practice with us and connect with community. There's a chat in there. There's even a find a buddy near me. You could find people who are doing the practice near where you live. It is such a key component, and it's so cool how it's a global community now because of technology. So if that's something that speaks to you, and you would like some support in showing up for your alignment based practice, we'd love to see you there. We've got miracle meditation once a month, a workshop once a month, opportunities to practice with Guru Singh and ask questions. So check us out at the 13moons.studio. We'd love to see you there. Anything you want to add before we sign off?
Good to be.
Good to be. All right, beautiful folks. We will see you next time on Kundalini Without the Cult podcast. Please like us, share us with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time.